been a request for a 104 hearing by the defense, so we'll proceed with that at this time.
Do solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
You may proceed with your examination.
Good morning.
Morning.
Will you please state your name and spell your last name for us?
Sure. Andrew Kays, K-A-Y-E-S.
Good morning, Dr. Kays. What do you do?
I'm a radiologist, so I'm a physician. My job is I usually just interpret images that are obtained of patients throughout the course of the day.
Are you certified to practice, board certified to practice medicine in the state of Hawaii?
Yes,
And do you have board certifications in any other states?
I do. California, Colorado, Kentucky.
Now let's go back to how you got there.
Okay.
Will you describe for us briefly but fully your educational background?
Sure. I went to Duke University for undergraduate. I went to Duke University for medical school. I did my internship at the Mayo Clinic, did my postgraduate training and residency at University of California, Los Angeles. I did an additional training fellowship at the Mayo Clinic.
Now, in regards to your residency, was that in a specific field?
Residency was in radiology.
And your fellowship, was that in a specific field?
It was additional training in bone and joint radiology, musculoskeletal radiology.
And the degree you obtained from Duke University?
Medical doctor.
Now, in regards to your certifications and licensures, would you also describe for us what certifications you hold and any additional licensure that you have held or presently hold?
I was once licensed to practice in the state of Florida and Ohio. I don't have those anymore just because I don't live there and don't have any use for them. I'm a radiation safety supervisor in the state of California. I've maintained that. Basic life support trained, which is required for my job.
And did you, did you mention your Colorado medical licensure?
I did.
Okay. Now, in regards to your undertakings in terms of research and publications, have you been published?
Yes.
Will you describe to us the type of research you undertook and the publications that you have produced?
My main interest, my additional training was in musculoskeletal imaging, so I have some publications in the Society of Skeletal Radiology Journal. I have publications in Medicine and Science and Sports and Exercise. Those are related to my sort of added field of interest within radiology.
And do you have any experience in providing educational presentations or specialized seminar lectures?
So I'm still on staff at University of California, Los Angeles. I'm volunteer staff. I go and teach their resident physicians several times a year. Most recently this past summer in July.
And in regards to your laboratory experience, do you have any specific laboratory experience?
I worked in the Human Dynamics Performance Research Lab at the Duke University. It's also called the Krzyzewski Lab, named after the basketball coach there. I worked there for a year and did research, and that led to two of the publications I mentioned.
Now, have you received any accolades in terms of special achievement merits or awards during your practice as a physician since you entered medical school?
Since I entered medical school.
Well, actually, let's start your undergraduate degree.
Undergraduate, I graduated first in my class at Duke University. No one ahead of me. Medical school, I was in the Medical Honor Society, but not first in my class, but top quarter. In residency, I was the chief resident. Most recently in my career, I was selected by the American College of Radiology to represent all private practice radiologists, the first from Hawaii to ever do so. That was a 2-year position I just rolled off of.
Terrific. Now, in regards to your employment, can we turn now to your employment history? Will you summarize for us your employment history in terms of where you worked and what you did in your specific job roles, and if you and do you remember each of them and the dates?
Sure.
Okay.
So my first year out of fellowship, I worked at a practice in Beverly Hills, California, called RadNet. had an opportunity to take a job in Maui. I moved to Maui and joined Maui Radiology Associates, which since disassociated in 2012. At that point, I formed my own corporation and took over a contract at Maui Diagnostic Imaging, and that's where I am now.
At Maui Diagnostic Imaging, did you work there during January of 2014?
I did.
When did you start there?
I started on my own with an S corporation at Maui Diagnostic Imaging August 2012, but I worked there with my previous group as well since 2007.
What do you do at the Maui Diagnostic Imaging?
I'm a diagnostic radiologist, so I interpret medical imaging. Community physicians refer their patients to me. We obtain imaging. I interpret the imaging and give them a result.
What type of imaging are you describing when you're talking about your role as the physician interpreting the imaging?
So I would interpret magnetic resonance imaging, CAT scan, ultrasound, X-ray, mammography, those 5 modalities.
And how are you able to interpret them?
The images are acquired from the patient. They're sent to a workstation. I look over the images and I give a report of the findings.
And who do you give that report to?
The referring physician. The patient has access to it, but the referring physician gets the report from me. I'm sort of a doctor's doctor.
Now, how do the patients come? How do those patient reports come to you for interpretation?
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking.
When you are performing your physician analysis and interpretation of the images at Maui Diagnostic Imaging, how are those images coming to you?
Oh, they come to me electronically at a computer workstation.
And where are they generated?
They can be generated either at the site where I'm located, in Kahului. They can be generated in Kihei. They can be generated in Wailuku. I do read some X-rays actually also from the west side from Capobianco.
And in regards to OBGYN sonograms, do you also read those
Yes,
reports?
daily. Yeah.
Now, can you give us an idea of how many OBGYN sonograms you've read in your career?
It would be a big number, and I probably would have to review. I can tell you I probably read 3 to 5 a day, and I've been practicing for 12 years.
Who generates, do you know who generates the actual images that you then interpret?
So my ultrasound technologists generate the images and, from 2 locations, from the Kihei location and from the Kahului location.
And can you explain to us who those people are?
Sure. One of his name's Tim Olson. He's in Kahului, and he's a technologist. He meets the patient. He takes an ultrasound probe. He acquires the images. I review the images. The others in Kihei, right now it's a woman named Chris. However, it used to be a woman named Adele. So,
Is that Adele Haywood?
yes.
And how do you know Adele Haywood?
She was my ultrasound technologist. We were work colleagues, friends.
And as part of your medical diagnosis or interpretation at Maui Diagnostic Imaging, did you have the opportunity to work from the images generated through the work of Adele Haywood?
Yes, daily.
And will you explain to us your experience in evaluating the quality of the images? Does she just give you only images?
She gives images. If it's a tough case, she may call me and we'll discuss it, or I might ask her to go back and obtain more. But if it's a more routine case, she would just send the images, and she might give me a worksheet. And if I had questions, I would call her. So there's interaction. The level of interaction depends on the level of complexity of the patient.
Right. And in regards to an anatomy scan for an OBGYN patient, are you familiar with the type of images that would be generated and reviewed by you?
Yes.
Will you explain to us what an anatomy scan is?
An anatomy scan is when a pregnant woman presents for an ultrasound. The fetus is evaluated with various measurements to ensure they're having proper growth. The areas around the fetus in the womb or also in the uterus are also evaluated to ensure those look fine, that there aren't any problems.
When you say problems, how do you diagnose whether there is or isn't a problem?
Based on various criteria, for example, if the interval growth of a fetus is lacking, you call back the OBGYN and say, hey, I'm worried there's growth retardation. You may see anatomic abnormalities within the fetus that require attention and referral to maternal fetal medicine or a more advanced consult, or you may just see normal anatomy, normal everything, and then you give the measurements, you provide the age, and that's it.
And when you do an anatomy scan, are you looking only at the fetus?
No.
What else do you look at?
You look at the placenta, you look at the amniotic fluid, you look at the uterus, you look at the ovaries if you can see them, you look at the remainder of the pelvis.
And why do you do that?
Again, just to look at those structures to make sure everything is fine.
At this time, the state submits on the testimony of Dr. Case and offers him as an expert in the field of diagnostic radiology, as well as the 5 modalities he's discussed.
Mr. Oakland.
Just a brief question relative to this part. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
So is it your testimony that relative to any ultrasound image that you're here to testify about, you did not actually take the image yourself, you actually have somebody else take it?
Correct.
I have no further questions at this time. I'll defer to the court relative to 104 termination.
All right, the court will find and conclude based upon the testimony presented that the witness has been duly qualified as an expert to testify in the field of diagnostic radiology and the 5 modalities discussed during this testimony.
Your Honor, prior to bringing the jury in, may I ask that I make an argument outside of the presence of the witness relative to anticipated testimony?
That's fine. All right, if you could just wait outside for a moment and then we'll have you come back. Thank you.
So, Your Honor, if the purpose of presenting this witness, and I'm not sure whether the state plans to bring in any witness who actually took the imaging that's being referred to, but my argument would be this, is that if the intent is to present evidence and or to just lay the foundation for Dr. Ammerman's ultimate opinion and testimony, which is that Ms. Scott was pregnant, we'd have no objection. We'd probably stipulate to anything that they're planning to present relative to that. But if the ultimate intent is to bring into evidence the ultimate image, I would submit to the court that in any event, that image should not be admitted into evidence as 403 at the very least. By all accounts, the state of the record reflects that Charlie Scott was pregnant, and the state has presented ample evidence on that. It's been undisputed. It's in Mr. Capobianco's statements. Our submission is that any introduction of these images is just more prejudicial than probative. It's for the mere fact for the state, or it's for the opportunity for the state to just put that in front of the jury at closing, and to inflame prejudice really along the lines of feticide. And so if the intent for this witness is just to lay the foundation for Dr. Ammerman's testimony, we'd have no objection. But if it is ultimately to bring in the image, I would submit that that should not be an appropriate intent or goal in the first place, and we would object to the ultimate admission in any event of the image.
Ms. Jones?
Your Honor, the state does intend to review the images that were marked for identification as 429 through 432, and what is now marked as states 444, which had been provided to defense counsel prior to the trial. These are only 5 of 47 such images that were captured by the sonographer, who is here to testify. Counsel was given notice that she's here, and she did travel from the mainland for her testimony today. This testimony of Dr. Kays, as well as the sonographer, is being offered pursuant to the court's request that the foundation be completed, and the conditional nature of Dr. Ammerman's testimony that we complete the foundation by providing the testimony of the sonographer and the radiologist who generated the report based on those images. It is relevant and not 403 material, as we have specifically selected images that are but a few of the many that are routine as part of this diagnostic procedure, the anatomy scan. And the additional image, which was not shown or discussed to Dr. Ammerman, that will be shown through this testimony to both the technician and the radiologist, includes measurement, a measurement type image to assist the jury in understanding how the report, which has not yet been shown to them in states 432, was generated for review by Dr. Kays from the images and measurements taken by Ms. Haywood.
So, again, the ultimate point is that Charlie Scott was pregnant. This is overkill. This is cumulative. It's a waste of time.
The report also, based on the measurements, dates the age of her pregnancy, and that is a fact that has not been put before the jury by a complete foundation, which this testimony would provide.
None of that's being contested. None of that's at issue. Everybody knows that she was 5, 7 months pregnant, whatever the numbers are. It's been out there all trial long, uncontested.
The court will overrule the objection that we'll have the witness return to the courtroom and have the jury brought into the courtroom. The record will reflect the presence of the members of the jury. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, we have our next witness. I'll just let you know that the witness has already been placed under oath. So at this time, you may call the witness, and then Ms. Jones.
Yes. At this time, the state calls Dr. Andrew Kays to the stand.
You may be seated, and you may proceed with your examination of the witness. Doctor, do you understand that you're still under oath?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Thank you.
Good morning, Dr. Case.
Good morning.
Will you please state your full name and spell your last name?
Sure. Andrew Kays, Kayes.
What do you do, Dr. Case? What kind of a doctor are you?
I'm a radiologist.
Are you licensed to practice medicine here in the state of Hawaii?
Yes.
Do you have licenses to practice medicine in any other states that are current or that you've held prior to
So
practice here?
currently also licensed in California, Colorado, Kentucky. Was before licensed in Florida and Ohio.
Well, let's go over your education and training.
Okay.
Okay. So will you, for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please review briefly but completely your educational training?
Okay. For undergraduate, I went to Duke University. I majored in mechanical engineering. I graduated first in my class. For medical school, I went to Duke University. I was in the upper quarter of my class. For internship, I was at the Mayo Clinic. I did a rotating general medicine internship. For residency, I went to University of California, Los Angeles for radiology. I was the chief resident there. And I did an additional year of training in advanced musculoskeletal imaging at the Mayo Clinic.
Thank you. In regards to medical school, what degree did you obtain upon graduation?
Medical doctor, MD.
Now, in regards to your internship at the Mayo Clinic, did you have any specific areas that you concentrated on during that medical internship?
Did medicine, surgery, and pediatrics. It was a rotating internship.
And what about your residency?
Residency was all diagnostic radiology.
And you indicated you had a fellowship. What is a fellowship?
A fellowship is, so when you finish residency, you're trained or you're board certified in your diagnostic radiology. Fellowship is where you do additional training in an area of interest and maybe do some research. So not all doctors have fellowships, some do. So it's usually a year to 3 of additional training.
Now, during your fellowship, what did you undertake the study or specialization of?
Advanced musculoskeletal imaging.
What is musculoskeletal imaging?
Bone and joints. Bone and joints.
Okay. Now, you've indicated your licensures to practice medicine in a number of state jurisdictions. Do you hold any other board certifications?
I'm certified in basic life support, BLS. I also am a radiation safety officer for the state of California, which is required for radiologists there.
And in regards to the American Board of Radiology, I believe you...
Oh, I'm board certified American Board of Radiology. Yeah.
What is that board certification in the American Board of Radiology?
So our society's board basically saying you've met all of the tenets to practice radiology independently if you're board certified.
During your career, have you had the opportunity to undertake research projects or participate in research projects that resulted in publications subject to peer review?
Yes.
Will you describe to us those publications?
I have a publication in the Society of Skeletal Radiology Journal. I have publications in medicine and science and sports and exercise, both related to research I did with the musculoskeletal system, bone and joints. I'm a volunteer. It's presentations but not publications. I'm still volunteer staff at University of California, Los Angeles, and I teach their residents and do presentations there throughout the year.
When you say you teach the residents there, does that mean...
Oh, so the radiologists who want to be board certified, they're in their residency, and I go back and give lectures to them.
And what is the title that you hold in order to...
I'm an associate professor at UCLA, but a volunteer faculty. I don't get paid for it.
You're an associate professor of...
Radiology.
Now, in regards to your research background, do you have any laboratory experience?
Yes, I spent 1 full year in medical school, laboratory experience at the Human Performance Research Lab at Duke University. It's also called the Krzyzewski Lab, named after the basketball coach there.
Will you describe for us whether you have been the recipient or designate of any special awards or merit designations?
In residency, I was the chief resident. Since then, during practice, I'm very active in the American College of Radiology. Most recently, I was appointed to represent all private practice radiologists throughout the United States, the first radiologist from Hawaii to do so. and that was just a rolling position. I just did that the past 2 years. I just rolled off of that position.
And when you say you represent all radiologists in private practice, is that across the nation?
Across the nation, nationwide.
Do you have an idea of what that, what would you call that? A leadership position entails a leadership of what volume of doctors?
Non-academic and non-military radiologist is probably roughly 20,000 plus or minus. So.
Let's turn to your employment history. Where do you work now?
Right now I work at Maui Diagnostic Imaging.
What do you do at Maui Diagnostic Imaging?
I'm a radiologist. I'm the medical director there as well.
Prior to work, and how long have you worked there?
I've worked at Maui Diagnostic Imaging independently since 2012. Prior to that, I still worked at Maui Diagnostic Imaging, but I was part of a larger group of radiologists from 2007 to 2012. And then the practice model changed in 2012, and then I became the medical director, and I practice only there now.
So essentially from 2007.
In 2007, I've been working at Maui Diagnostic Imaging, yeah.
And how long have you been the medical director?
Since 2012.
Prior to that, where did you work?
I worked in Beverly Hills for 1 year immediately after my fellowship, and then I had an opportunity to come take a job in Maui, and I did, and I've been here ever since.
Will you explain to us what is a radiologist and what do you do on a day-to-day basis?
So a radiologist interprets medical imaging. Patients come in, they get an X-ray, an MRI, an ultrasound. My technologists acquire the images, and I review the images on a computer workstation, and I give my best interpretation of those images.
Do you have any specialization or any areas in which you have been specially trained for radiology?
I'm a general radiologist, so I interpret CAT scan, MRI, ultrasound, mammography, and X-ray, but my advanced training in musculoskeletal imaging was mainly MRI imaging.
How do you diagnose or evaluate a set of images for a particular patient? Now, we're going to make this real general at first, okay? Will you explain to us what that entails?
Well, a referring physician, say a primary care physician, will say a patient's short of breath. They'll refer them to my facility to get a chest X-ray. My technologist will acquire the X-ray. They'll come to my workstation, and I'll review it to see if it's normal or abnormal, and if it is abnormal, what I think it is.
When you say they'll come to your workstation...
Computer workstation has big monitors and has images that I look at. I'm not sure if that's what you mean.
Are you the one that actually performs the testing?
No, not usually. My technologist will acquire the images, and I review the images.
When you say your technologist, what kind of technologist do you rely on as part of your radiology practice?
Each modality has its own technologist. So X-ray has its own technologist, actually a few of them. MRI has its own technologist, CT, ultrasound, they all have their own. Mammography, I have a mammography technologist. They acquire the images, which I review. So.
Now, let's turn specifically to obstetric and gynecological testing.
Okay.
Are you familiar with the radiology aspect of testing in the OBGYN field?
Yes.
Will you explain to us what are some of those tests and the purposes for them?
So, most pregnant women, as routine part of their care, they'll get an ultrasound, and they'll come in. My technologist will acquire images to look at the fetus and make evaluations of, is it normal or abnormal? Is it growing normally? Is the fluid around it normal? Are the other structures in the pelvis normal? And if not, what's wrong, and what do we need to do? So.
When you talk about the other structures in the pelvis, what are you talking about?
Placenta, amniotic fluid, uterus, ovaries, bladder, and other pelvic. I'm not sure.
And how can you tell if there is or isn't a problem?
Years of training. No. I mean, there's sort of standards, and you look at, make sure things look as they should. If they don't, then you need to figure out what's going on, give your best diagnosis of what that abnormal finding is.
And In terms of Maui Diagnostic Imaging, where is the primary office located?
Primary office is located in Kahului at Triangle Square, which is near the Kitchen Restaurant near BMW dealership.
Is there another location for Maui Diagnostic Imaging?
There's 2 other locations. There's one here in Wailuku, just down the street, that just does x-ray, and then there's a location in Kihei that does mammography, x-ray, and ultrasound.
Now, in regards to the sonogram type images, OB/GYN type images that you review as the radiologist doing the diagnosis and report, who's generating those images?
My ultrasound technologist generates the images that I review.
Now, in January of 2014, did you work with a sonographer by the name of Adele Haywood?
Yes.
And who is Adele Haywood?
She was my ultrasound technologist at the time. And she's also a friend, but I mean, we mainly work together, yeah.
Now, can you describe for us the number of times that you review sonogram images?
Well, I'll probably review 20 to 30 sonogram images per day, specifically obstetric, maybe 3 to 5 a day. So there's other sonograms can be used to look at other parts of the body as well.
Now, in regards to your work with Adele Haywood's images as the sonographer, have you had experience in working with her images and other reports that would be generated for your review?
Yes.
Right. Will you describe to us how you evaluate the quality of those images and the information relayed to you as the radiologist doing the interpretation and diagnosis?
Okay, specifically for obstetric ultrasounds, I have a set number of things I need to see in the fetal anatomy, and I need Adele or whatever tech is there to make sure they see all those things. If they don't see the things that I'm expecting to see, I need to know why. For example, sometimes the fetus may be lying funny, it might be hard to see something, but I have a specific set of anatomy that I need to see in each and every report, and I also have them take measurements to determine fetal age.
And how's Adele's work in your experience as the physician receiving and interpreting her images?
Excellent. I have no problems. I'm sad to see her leave Maui.
Now, I want to turn your attention specifically to a sonogram conducted at Maui Diagnostic Imaging on January 17th of 2014 for a patient by the name of Carly Scott. Did you review a number of images and Adele's worksheet in regards to that patient?
Yes, I did.
Will you explain to us how, you talked about a referring physician.
Mm-hmm.
How does that doctor's order get from the doctor into MDI so that the patient ultimately has the images that will be read by you?
So a doctor would order the obstetric ultrasound, the paperwork would come to my office. There's various, things they do with the insurance to make sure it's approved for a payment or whatever needs to be done. And then after that, the patient is scheduled. And then when the patient's scheduled, they go see the technologist who acquires the images. The images are sent to me, and I send a report to the referring physician. Sort of a doctor's doctor. The doctor wants, like pathology, they want to have information about the imaging, and I get that information back to the referring physician.
Right. Madam Clerk, would you please pull 429 through 432? And may the record reflect and showing defense counsel states 444. May approach Dr. Case.
You may.
Dr. Case, I'm showing you states 429, through 432, which have been admitted into evidence,
Okay.
and then I'll show you states 444.
Okay.
Will you take a look at those 5 images and tell us whether you recognize them?
Yes, I recognize the images.
And what is it about them that you recognize?
Well, I read this report, so I have my own report, and I'm not sure, again, I understand the question, but just it's an ultrasound that I interpreted, so.
Now, you indicated that you generated a report. What is that report?
The report will give information on the fetal anatomy, again, whether it's normal or abnormal, and then the relative size of certain measurements that help us determine fetal age.
What is an anatomy scan in terms of in the specific setting of an OB/GYN patient?
So specifically, we're trying to make sure that everything within the head looks okay, that the heart looks okay, kidneys, stomach, spine, bladder look okay. Those things, when we see all those things and they're normal, we can move on. There's also the cord insertion where the placenta and the fetus come together, the umbilical cord, and we want to make sure that looks fine.
And did you receive a number of images in addition to the 5 that you have before you in regards to the patient Carly Scott from the sonogram of January 17th of 2014?
Yes.
Okay. And are those type of images what you're describing to us of the different parts?
Correct.
So, I'll go ahead and object to the leading questions at this point.
It's foundational.
This is nothing foundational, this is his testimony.
If we can go through each one of them, I'm trying to have him summarize them by using only these 5 images.
At least for the time being, the objection is overruled.
Are those, you can answer the question, I'll re-ask
Okay.
it. Are the additional images that are not before you that you reviewed of the parts of the anatomy and other areas of the pelvis that you've described?
Yes.
Now, I want to turn specifically to states 444, marked for identification. You recognize that as well?
Yes.
Right. Is that one of the sonogram images reviewed by you and relied on as a radiologist in generating the report of the sonogram of the patient Charlie Scott, January 17, 2014?
Yes.
And at this time, the state offers states 444 into evidence, and in regards to the admission of 429 through 431, I understand the court has received those. I'll just ask the court to consider this additional foundation, and also offers states 432 not previously admitted or published to the jury. You are subject to the offer that was made previously in regards to the technician.
That being said, Your Honor, my only objection left would be that of relevance. There's never been we're not contesting that Charlie Scott was
Objection
pregnant.
speaking.
I just want to confirm on the status of I'll confirm the preceding evidence of States Exhibits 429, 430, 431, marked for identification purposes. And this is subject to the additional foundation, but there being no objection, and also 432
I'm sorry,
other than relevance.
I did have an objection, Your Honor.
Other than relevance.
I don't know if the court heard my objection. I'm sorry.
Could we approach?
I think I just heard the court say I didn't have an objection.
Other than relevance.
Right, okay.
All right, and likewise, I'll receive 44, State's Exhibit 444, marked for identification purposes. Again, subject to the foundation being supplemented based on the representations made earlier today.
Yes, thank you. Permission to publish states
Granted.
429 through 432 and 444.
Granted.
Okay. Permission for Dr. Case to step down.
You may step in. Thank you.
Dr. Case, if you step down, there's a wooden pointer stick right to your left there. Okay, if you would sort of stand exactly where you are, and I will display the images on the
Okay.
television screen before you. I'm referring to states 430. Okay, so in regards to states 430, is this one of the images you have reviewed in regards to your sonogram report for the patient Charlie Scott?
Yes.
How do you know, based on this, whose images, in terms of the patient you're reviewing, and when the sonogram was generated?
It's all on there, the patient's name, the date of service, the time the image was obtained.
And are these records regularly kept as part of your, you said you had business function as well as Maui Diagnostic Imaging's medical director. Are these images kept in the regular course of your business?
Yes, for at least 7 years.
And do you rely on them regularly in your medical practice and as well as the business end of your, I guess, your business function at, as well as your medical function at Maui Diagnostic Imaging?
Well, you have to have the right image on the right patient at the right time, and you have to keep the images for 7 years. That's the law. So.
And how do you have any protocols at Maui Diagnostic Imaging to make sure that you, as the radiologist, are actually receiving reports from a specific patient rather than another patient?
The specific protocol.
Like, how do you know that this is a sonogram photograph for a patient, Charlie Scott?
I trust my staff and techs to give me the right information at the right time.
Are they instructed in regards to the importance that you place on?
Absolutely.
So I'm going to object this to the leading question.
Right, it's foundational.
Everything's foundational then.
Yeah, counsel, please. All right, the objection is overruled. Proceed.
Is your staff instructed by you and others at Maui Diagnostic Imaging, specifically you as the medical director, as to the importance of verifying the identity of the patients who undergo procedures that you review?
Yes.
And will you explain to us why that is important to you as the medical director, to have staff that is trained to make precise or verified records that are reviewed by you?
Well, you want the patient to get the correct report and the correct treatment based upon that report. One, that's the most important thing. The patient's interest to me are the most important interest. But two, it's also the law. We have to get it right. We have to make sure we're reading the right image on the right patient at the right time. So.
Do you have any reason to question that the set of images that you reviewed on Dr. I'm sorry, did you tell us who you relayed the report to as the doctor's doctor?
Oh, it's Dr. Ammerman, Stacy Ammerman.
Okay. Do you have any question in regards to these images having related to a specific patient per the doctor's orders?
Do I have any questions that this wasn't? I'm not sure I understand.
Okay, let me ask it to you another way. All right. In regards to images that you receive, you indicated to us you rely on your staff.
Sure.
Okay. And you also rely on a doctor's order for a specific procedure.
Correct.
So, for example, in this instance, did you have a specific order from Dr. Ammerman?
Yes.
What was that?
It would have been an order for an obstetric ultrasound.
Now, specifically an anatomy scan?
An anatomy scan. There's an early and a late obstetric ultrasound. The early one just usually establishes viability. A late scan is to evaluate the anatomy.
Okay, so this would be the later scan.
later scan.
Now, are the images that you received from your sonographer, Adele Haywood, were they a set of anatomy scan type images
Yes,
on that obstetric order?
yes, they were.
Okay. All right, I want to turn your attention to 429. What, did you review this image as well for
Yes.
the patient, Charlie Scott, from the sonogram, January 17th to 14th?
Yes.
Carly Scott, I'm sorry, I misspoke. All right, will you explain to us, as the radiologist, what you relied on in terms of this image in generating your report that was transmitted to Dr. Ammerman?
All right. Well, this is a cross-sectional image through the fetus, so you're actually getting a section right through the heart. That's actually the heart, and then you have a thing called M-mode ultrasound. I won't go too far into the weeds. M stands for motion. By putting this on the scan, we can take a measurement of the motion. The measurement of the motion gives us the motion timing, which gives us a heart rate of 144 beats per minute.
When you say the motion and you were waving your hand, what is that the motion of?
Oh, the beating heart.
And why is that significant as a radiologist reading this report?
Beating heart, the fetus is alive.
And did you include that information in your report?
Every report.
Turning your attention to states 444. Will you explain to us what we're looking at in this image, Dr. Case?
So this is a cross-section actually through the head. So if you can kind of imagine that through the skull.
Will you explain to us where that is and by indicating with the pointer?
So it's right here. This is the head.
May the record reflect that Dr. Case is indicating the circular image within this sonogram.
So basically this is a cross-section through the head to give me two measurements that help me determine the age. One is the 8C, which is head circumference, that's the circle. The other is BPD, which is biparietal diameter, which is essentially the diameter side to side.
And why are those measurement values important to you as a radiologist?
They're 2 of 4 standard measurements that we obtain to help give our best guess at the fetal age.
And are you familiar with how these measurements are taken at the
Yes.
sonographer level?
Yes.
Will you explain that for us?
The sonographer will capture an image, and then there's measurement tools on the workstation, just like any other computer tool that would draw the measurement, and the measurement would be populated into the end report.
And may the record reflect that when Dr. Case was indicating a cross-section that he indicated an area above the ears?
That's just above the ears and the head. Biparietal. Your parietal bones are here and here. Biparietal diameter is where you
Okay.
take the head circumference.
I just need to make a record of that. May the record reflect Dr. Case is indicating to the left and right side of the head
Sure.
in a line approximately at the eyebrows above the ear.
No, it'd be actually back here. See, the line is sort of in the middle of the head. That's the biparietal diameter. I'm connecting it. That's from here to here.
Oh, when he says biparietal, so you're talking about more above the ears?
Yes.
Okay. And that's the side to side. Now, in terms of the location of the cross-section?
The largest head circumference, which is also about the same location.
Okay, thank you. Returning your attention to states 4, 3, 2. What are we looking at here?
So this is the composite of all the measurements that the tech gave me. I don't know if you can remember, but on the last image, these two measurements were there.
When you say these two, which two are you referring to?
The BPD, the biparietal diameter, and the 8C, the head circumference. And by plugging these measurements into our program, we get an approximate age. We average the measurements of the approximate age to give a composite age, composite ultrasound age, CUA.
And what is that for this particular report?
This one is 19 weeks, 3 days, plus or minus a week.
And did you rely on this in creating that report for Dr. Ammerman?
Yes.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Hughes. Will you have a seat, please? Now, as part of your report to Dr. Ammerman, you besides giving the measurements that you've reviewed for us in regards to estimating the gestational age of the fetus, as well as the fact that it was live, did you give her a set of impressions or conclusions based upon your reading of these images?
Yes.
Will you tell us what those were?
It was a single live entry in pregnancy with a gestational age of 19 weeks, 3 days. I gave it estimated day of delivery, 6/10/2014. I didn't see any gross anatomic abnormalities, saying the major structures we talked about earlier look good. And I also noticed that the placenta was slightly low-lying. Placenta is, again, the connection from the mom to the baby. And it was low-lying means it's near the cervix or near the outlet of the uterus.
What does that mean?
The low-lying definition is within 0.5 to 5 centimeters of the cervix. I usually use about 2 centimeters, and I let the referring physician know. If the placenta is close to the outlet, it can be difficult to have a delivery, and so you monitor it. Vast majority of cases, as the uterus grows and the baby grows, the placenta also grows away from the cervix. If it doesn't, then the baby gets a C-section.
What's the health risk involved?
From just a low-lying placenta,
But you reported it nonetheless?
I reported it so they knew in case they needed to do a cesarean section delivery, in case it didn't change. I wanted them to come back, look again, make sure the placenta actually went away from the cervix and not over the cervix. If you block the outlet, obviously the baby can't get out, other than with a cesarean section.
And you would make that diagnosis with the follow-up?
Yes.
And is that what you recommended in your impression conclusion?
I did. I tell them to follow it in 6 to 8 weeks.
Now, in regards to your report, do you date and time that?
Yes, and it's date and time when I did it and then when I sign it, because sometimes I will do it a transcription, so we'll type it. I might need to make some minor edits, and then it's again date and time when I signed it.
Okay, when did you date and time your radiological review?
So I dictated it on the 17th, and the day it was required. I signed it on the 19th at 1:45 p.m.
So are these records your report of the ultrasound, the obstetric ultrasound? Are those reports also kept in the regular course of your business?
For at least 7 years.
And you rely on them as the radiologist?
Yes.
I object to that. It misstates the testimony. I think he generates the reports. He writes the reports.
I'll overrule the objection. Thank you.
Insurance Defense Counsel states 445 for identification. May I approach Dr. please?
Yes.
Showing you states 445 for identification. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
How do you recognize it?
It's the report I did on this patient.
Is that the report that was transmitted to Dr. Ammerman?
Yes.
Does it contain your radiological reading as well as the impressions and any diagnoses?
Yes.
Is it a true and correct copy?
Yes.
Does it appear to be altered in any way?
No.
Is this such a record that you've indicated as the medical director and also having a business function at Maui Diagnostic Imaging is created and kept as in the ordinary course of your business?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time the state offers into evidence what has been marked as states 445.
Defense will defer to the court.
State's Exhibit number 445, marked for identification purposes, is received in evidence.
May I approach Dr. please?
Yes.
Have other images also.
Oh, sure.
Can you have the report?
Yeah. Do you want the report?
Thank you. Your Honor, also the state at this time offers states 443 marked for identification.
No objection.
State's Exhibit 443, marked for identification purposes, is received and reviewed.
Did everything that you testified to, was it to a reasonable degree of medical certainty based upon your education, training, and experience as a radiologist?
Yes.
And it all occurred here on Maui?
Yes.
I have no further questions, thank you.
Cross-examination, Mr. O'Connor.
Make sure I understand the heart of your testimony, and that would be that Charlie Scott was pregnant?
Objection, Your Honor, that's argumentative.
How is that argumentative?
The objections of law. You may answer the question.
Is that the heart of your testimony?
This was a
Your Honor, that's an argument as to what the heart of the
All
testimony
right.
is.
I'll ask the question be rephrased. All right. You may rephrase the question.
No further. I have no question.
All right. Are there any juror questions?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Dr. You are excused. You may call your next witness.
The state calls Adele Haywood to the stand.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
You may be seated. You may proceed with your examination of the witness.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Will you please state your full name and spell your first and last name?
Adele Quintela Haywood.
Actually, maybe you could spell all three names.
Okay. ADELEQUINTELA HAYWOOD.
Good morning, Ms. Haywood. What do you do?
I'm a sonographer
Where do you live?
in New Mexico, Albuquerque.
Did you live here on Maui?
I did.
During what time frame?
From June of 2010 to May of 2015.
And what do you do?
I'm an ultrasound technologist.
What is an ultrasound technologist?
An ultrasound technologist, we take ultrasound images using high frequency ultrasound waves. We image inside the body, looking at organs and soft tissue.
And how long have you been so your full title is a diagnostic, can you tell us your full title?
Registered diagnostic medical sonographer.
As a registered diagnostic medical sonographer, does that entail a specific certification, education, or training?
Yes, it is.
And we briefly but fully describe for us your educational experience and training to acquire your registration as a diagnostic medical sonographer.
Yes, I have an AA in radiologic technology, and then I have a certificate degree in ultrasound.
where did you get your AA degree in X-ray technology?
New Mexico State University, Las Cruces.
And what kind of work did you do following your AA in X-ray technology?
I did, was trained in mammograms, so I did that for 9 months.
And then how did you become a registered diagnostic medical sonographer?
There's a national exam board that has to be taken after you finish their certificate program.
And where did you get that from?
University Hospital in Colorado, Denver,
In what year?
2000.
What kind of work did you do following your becoming a registered diagnostic medical sonographer?
Well, I worked at the University Hospital in Colorado. That's where I started, and then after that I worked at several outpatient clinics and also a mobile ultrasound company.
Did you work at here on Maui at the Maui Diagnostic Imaging?
Yes, I did.
At what venue?
Kihei, MDI.
Do you know Dr. Andrew Case?
Yes,
How do you know him?
I worked with him.
Did you see him today?
Yes.
And how did you work with Dr. Case at Maui Diagnostic Imaging?
He was the radiologist who read my sonograms.
Will you tell us about how many years experience you have in performing sonography?
16.
Now, in your 16 years of experience, can you tell us about how many sonograms you've performed as a technologist?
Over 1,000 a year, I'm sure. Probably 2 some years, depending on where I was at.
What kind of sonograms are you registered or certified to conduct?
Abdomen, OBGYN, small parts, vascular, MSK, so
Okay,
musculoskeletal ultrasound.
all right, some of that's going to require some translation. Okay, so abdomen is what?
It's abdominal ultrasound, just all the organs in the abdomen, liver, pancreas, gallbladder, spleen, kidneys. And then OB would be fetus from first trimester to third trimester. And then small parts being like thyroid, scrotal, that kind of thing. And then GYN would be female anatomy. And then vascular would be Doppler, like the vessels in the peripheral system. And then I also do echocardiography, which is the ultrasound of the heart.
And then you said MSK?
Oh, musculoskeletal, yeah. So that's the soft tissue, like fingers or shoulders, knees, that type of thing, the tendons and ligaments.
Okay. Will you give us an example of what kind of, you said, I'm sorry, OB and GYN having 2 different components, is that right?
Yeah, well, OB is the, I image the fetus, but, it's part of the female anatomy as well. So they kind of roll that into one, OB-GYN. That's one part of the vascular boards, and then abdomen would be another. So there's different exams that you have to take to become registered.
And so you are now, have been certified in those specific areas?
Yes.
What is, in regards to an OB-GYN, what is an anatomy scan?
Anatomy scan is, we look at, there's a list of anatomy that we have to look at. So it just entails from head to toe several areas of the body, and there's measurements we take. Some of those measurements get put into a package, and that's how we're able to tell what the gestational age is of the fetus.
How are you involved, like what part of, and I'm saying in what part of the medical testing procedure are you involved in as a sonographer?
just making sure everything looks good, making sure we get all the anatomy that we can in order to help the radiologist make his diagnosis.
And how do you know whether there is or isn't a problem?
The training that we get, we pretty much learn what normal is, and then if there's something abnormal, of course we're going to document that and expand on that area.
Now, were you working at Maui Diagnostic Imaging during January of 2014?
Yes, I was.
And prior to your testimony today, did you review a number of images for a sonogram conducted of Carly Scott January 17th of 2014?
Yes, I did.
Right. Do you remember about how many images you generated during that testing?
During that specific one, no, I mean, it can be anywhere from 40 to 60. It just varies.
Now, will you explain to us what sonography is and what you are looking for as a sonographer? So let's start with the first part. What is sonography?
It's high frequency ultrasound waves that we use to, or sound waves that we use to view the organs inside the body.
And what kind of instrumentation do you use to be able to perform a sonogram?
The ultrasound machine, there's different brands, and I think the GE9 was the one that we were using at the clinic at the time.
And how, in regards to your function, are you operating that instrumentation? What do you do?
What do? I physically put the transducer on the patient and document. It's real time. Ultrasound's real time, so you're scanning through. You're looking. You're trained to look for certain things, at certain things, take images of the anatomy as you go along, and of course, if there's something abnormal, you take additional images of that area.
You indicated a transducer.
Yes.
What is a transducer?
Transducer is a device that's attached to the ultrasound machine, and that's what we use to penetrate through the patient's skin in order to acquire the images.
Now, when you say the image is to come up, what are they coming up on, or
A monitor, a screen that we have, like a computer screen.
is that right there for your review?
Yes.
So when you look at the screen, what are you doing with the transducer?
I'm scanning the patient.
Now, in regards to an anatomy scan for an OB/GYN patient, what part of the body are you scanning?
The abdomen, the uterus.
So if a patient comes in to see you as the sonographer, will you explain to us the procedure that you've been trained to comply by when intaking a patient prior to performing any sonography diagnosis on them?
Yeah, we usually verify by date of birth and then input the patient's information, and if I have to verify the patient's name, then I'll do that as well, the spelling,
And why do you do that?
to make sure I have the correct patient.
How important is that to you?
Very important.
After you are creating the images, so you say you verify the patient's identity, and how do you do that? Is it by name, date of birth, both?
Date of birth usually.
And then where is that information inputted?
Into the ultrasound machine, patient profile.
Now, in regards to the sonogram images you've indicated your review for January 17th of 2014 for the patient Carly Scott, did you create a report or a worksheet for Dr. Case?
Yes.
Was he the only doctor you were working with at that time at Maui Diagnostic?
No, there was another doctor there.
Why would you have referred it to Dr. K's?
It's just whoever's reading that day.
So it could have been the other doctor.
Yes.
Do you have instances, is Dr. K's actually there at the facility in Kihei when you do the sonogram?
No.
Are there instances where you would have to consult with the radiologist?
Yes.
Did you have that instance in the set of sonogram images you're testifying you reviewed?
Not that I recall, no.
Your permission to publish states 429, 431, 432, and 444.
Right.
Let's start with states 444. Ms. Haywood, I'm going to refer you to the television screen. Permission for Ms. Haywood to step down.
You may step up.
If you could step down, there's a pointer just to your left as you are at the bottom step there. It's behind you at this point.
Right behind you.
Okay. And if you could stand right where you are so everyone can see. Do you recognize this image 444?
Yes.
Okay. Actually, I want to do it. One moment, please. Okay. Just wanted to, for the record, I've removed the exhibit sticker because it was over part of the image. What are we looking at here?
This is the top of the baby's head, or the fetus head.
Did you generate this sonogram image?
Yes.
How do you know that? Will you explain that for us?
My initials are up here at the top of the screen,
Where are they?
right here, AQH.
May the record reflect that the witness has indicated to the second line of printing. How do you know, do you know the date and time that you performed this sonogram?
Yeah, it's on the screen. It's January 17th, 2014.
At what time?
It's 1:56 p.m.
Now, how is the date and time inputted into the image that we're viewing as states 444 now?
The machine is set up for date and time automatically be put on the screen.
Is that part of that real-time technology you described?
No, that's it within the machine itself. It's a part of the I'm trying to think of the it's just in there at all. You set it and then that's it. You don't have to mess with it anymore unless the machine goes down or they have to fix it or anything like that. Then
Okay, any problems with this, the instrumentation on this day?
no.
Okay. And you indicated that you verified the patient. Is the patient information also on each of the images that you generate?
Yes,
And where is that?
so that's right up here at the top of the screen.
And the patient for this particular image?
This card is got.
And do you make and keep these records as part of your regular business as a sonographer at Maui Diagnostic Imaging? And do you rely on them in creating your worksheets and reports referred to the radiologist for interpretation?
Yes.
And how, when this image is being viewed by you on the screen you've described, where is the patient in relation to you?
On the sideline down on the bed.
Okay. Do you ever let other people in?
Yes.
And what are the situations where you'll have another person accompany a patient?
If it's a minor, even spouses, want to come in the room sometimes with the patient if they're nervous or whatever, but we think the patient asks.
Do you explain the procedure as you're scanning or doing your sonogram to the patient?
I do.
What are some of the things that you would explain while you're obtaining this image?
Just that I was looking at the head, and I don't tell them what measurements I'm taking, just that that's the head.
Will you tell us what measurements you were taking?
Yeah, this is 2 measurements. This is the bipyramidal diameter, so it's across the head from one side to the other. And then you can see this line here around, that's called the head circumference.
And may the record reflect, Ms. Haywood is indicating to the measurements, measurement markers that are on either side of the circular image in the center of the sonogram. How do you make take those measurements?
Well, we use on the machine, there's a place where you hit caliper, and then we go to the package for OB ultrasound for bipyramidal diameter, and then you take the measurement with the calipers and the track bar.
Okay, let's back up. When you say you go to the package, you're talking about the program?
Yeah, there's a program in the machine, depending on what exam we're doing, what measurements we take, so that our measurements will go into the package, and that's what tells us how far along the fetus is.
And you've also talked about calipers.
Yes.
What's a caliper?
It's these little crosses here that you see
And the function of a caliper is what?
to show me where I'm measuring,
Why is that important?
because that's what determines the size of the fetus.
And how precise are you in taking those, placing the caliper for those measurements?
Pretty precise. It can vary from tech to tech by, millimeters or even smaller, but it's pretty accurate.
And where are you measuring? You indicated circumference and biparietal. Will you show us on your head where that is?
So it would be like a cross section through the head about this level here.
May the record reflect the witness is showing a cross section above her ear.
Yeah, so we measure from one side to the other. So we're looking down when you're doing an ultrasound. We're looking down, so it's this kind of cross section all the way through, and then around the head would be this way.
Okay. May the record reflect that the witness, Ms. Haywood, has indicated the sonogram is a measurement from essentially an area above the right ear to the left ear, and the circumference is the area around that cross section above the ears.
Correct.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. Now, do those measurements appear on this sonogram screen?
Yes.
Where are they?
The measurements are, so the first one's from here to here, across the head.
And where are the numbers that
The
correspond?
number's right here. This is the first measurement, the number 1.
The number, I'm sorry?
Number 1.
Okay. And is there a corresponding, and I'm referring to the box at the bottom of the screen with the corresponding 1. Can you
Yeah.
give-
That would be the bipyramidal diameter.
Okay. I just want to call it out for you. All right, will you explain these values for us?
Yeah, so the bipyramidal diameter is in centimeters, the measurement across the head, so that would be the 4.47. So then that, as I was saying, the package of the ultrasound gives me about approximately how far along the fetus is. And then the 62% is the range of the fetus opposed to the last menstrual period the patient gave me.
What does that mean?
The last menstrual period dates would be the first day of the patient's last menstrual period.
And the significance of that date?
Determines how far along the patient is.
Okay. And so, in regards to the difference of the 1 day between the value 1 for the biparietal and 2 the head circumference, is it